This is Algebra 1, Semester 2. This is the third unit called Quadratics and the 18th lesson called Quadratic Formula Practice. It's on creatormath.com under the Geometry tab. The Algebra tab. You might have to type in creatormath.weebly.com in Google to find the website. The instructions are copy the following problems into your composition book on the correct pages according to the table of contents, with the notes for those pages from creatormath.com. So to show that, let's go here. You're going to type in creatormath.weebly.com into Google. You'll see the home page pop up, hopefully, that looks like this. After that, go to the Algebra tab. Sorry, I said it wrong at first. Go to the Algebra tab, pass by the vocabulary, find Semester 2. This is the table of contents that you've copied into your composition book on pages 2 through 6. Go down to, right here, Quadratics. Find number 18, right here, which is the quadratic formula. These are the pages that the notes go on. Please look at the actual table of contents when you get to this point and not this video for the real pages. They'll probably be different by the time you watch this video. Here are the notes. Click on Notes. Once the image loads, sometimes I have to load it a couple times depending on my internet connection. You'll see, well, right here, the quadratic formula, x equals negative b plus or minus radical b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That's the quadratic formula. Here we have a equal to b equal to c equal to for a quadratic that we are finding the roots for. Here is a sample of filling out the quadratic equation and a couple samples and some vocabulary. You're definitely writing this in your comp book first. Quadratic equation, there it is again. Standard form of the equation, x squared plus bx plus c, we're going to see that. Plus minus means it's both adding and subtracting that number. And that's about it. So copy those notes in first, then go and do these problem sets. So first things first, they're going to have us practice, let's see, ax squared plus bx plus c, identify a, b, and c. Well, we've done this several times in prior lessons, so I'm going to go pretty quickly. What number is in front of x squared? If you don't see any number, it's got to be a 1, right? A equals 1. The b is this one here, the number in front of the x. B equals plus 6. And the c is the tail here. C equals minus 27. So there's a, b, and c. And that's all they're asking us to do on these first problems, is identify a, b, and c. Then when we have that, then we plug it into the quadratic equation. All right, so here we go, a, b, and c. A is 1, b is negative 14, c is positive 48. 1, negative 14, positive 48. 1, negative 14, positive 45. 1, negative 14, positive 45. 1, positive 2, negative 63. 1, positive 2, negative 63. 1, positive 22, positive 121. 1, positive 22, positive 121. So far, piece of cake. All right, use the quadratic formula, which is x equals negative b plus minus radical b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You gotta kind of have to read the typescript, the way this formula is laid out, and you can rewrite it. I'll show you that in a second. Set up the following quadratic to be solved. So I don't have to actually solve it, I just have to set it up. So let's start with this. X equals, here's what they're writing here. Negative b plus or minus radical b squared minus 4ac, b squared minus 4ac all over, divided by 2a. That's our actual quadratic formula. Look at the notes for that. Look at what they're giving us to factor. A is equal to 1, because there's a 1 in front of the x squared. B is equal to plus 6, because that's what's in front of the x. And c is equal to minus 27. A, b, and c. Now, to find the roots, just one more technical sort of background issue is we have to set y equal to 0, which is the same as setting f of x equal to 0. This is function notation. Same thing though, the f of x and the y are synonymous in this case. So it becomes 0 equals x squared plus 6x minus 27. All right, technically speaking, we can't solve for the roots until we place this thing equal to 0, because y has to be equal to 0 to find that x location. All right, so all we have to do is fill it in. So let's go over here and say x equals negative b. The b is positive 6, so you have a negative positive 6, or negative 6. You have a square root, b squared, so that's 6 squared, minus 4ac. So 4 is in the equation, or in the formula. A is 1, and c is negative 27. That's all in there. All over 2 times a we said was 1. 2 times 1. So that's all we're doing is setting it up. We're not doing the actual calculation. And here they have x equals negative 6 plus or minus radical 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 27 divided by 2 times 1. A little bit hard to see, but that's it. All right. Let's see if they ask us on this one to set it up using the quadratic equation, and they give it to us. Set up the following to be solved. A equals 1, b equals negative 14, and c equals positive 48. X equals negative b plus or minus radical b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. When I was in algebra in high school, my teacher, Mr. Vogely, who was also my tennis coach, he gave us a competition. He said, who can say the quadratic formula fastest? And I actually won that. I said it something like this: x equals negative b plus or minus radical b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And when he timed it, it was like 1.7 seconds or something. And I know my students can beat it because I've had competitions and they have. But I won a Snickers bar for that. And that is the strangest thing. It's one of the only things I remember from algebra in high school. Strange the way school works. Okay, so let's plug it in. Negative 14. So there's a negative in the formula, and b is negative 14. Plus or minus radical b squared, which is negative 14. The whole thing is squared. I should have made this longer. Let's make this square root longer. Minus 4 times a, which is 1. And I should have made it even longer. C, which is 48. So times 48. All over 2 times 1. All right, so here's what we got. Negative 14. Good. And I'm glad we did that. They did too. I appreciate that. Plus or minus, that goes in right here. Radical negative 14 squared, good. We have our negative still in the parentheses. Minus, that's in the formula, 4 times 1 times 48, divided by 2 times 1. Let's take a little bit of time, and I might just go ahead and do this one. Do they just say set it up? Okay. So a equals 1. B equals negative 14, same thing. C in this case equals positive 45. So very similar to the problem we just did, only we changed positive 45 here. So I'm going to leave the formula here. I'm not going to rewrite it. I'm going to say negative b, so it's a negative 14 plus or minus radical, let's go long on that, negative 14 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which we said now is 45, all over 2a. And what you'll find is while this, 2 times 1, let's plug in a as 1. While this looks complicated on the first runs, by the time you do this the second and third and fourth and you start writing them out, you're going to see, wow, things start to look really similar. And if I just follow this ABC procedure, I can plug these in. And I hope they make us put this into our calculator. If not, I might go back and change this for later. But we can plug this directly into our calculator and have it solve the whole thing for us if we plug it in correctly. So using the quadratic formula, set it up. A equals 1, b equals 2, c equals negative 63. X equals negative b, which is 2, plus minus radical b squared, which is 2 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 63, get the sign in there, all over 2 times 1. There it is right there. 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 63, all over 2 times 1, good, and it's a negative 2, good. And this one, just to go back and do this, was negative 14, good, and negative 14 squared minus 4 times 1 times 45. Remember, my answer always shows up in the A position. Yours is going to be mixed when you get your assignment. Set it up. A equals 1. B equals 22. C equals 121. X equals negative b, which is 22. Plus or minus radical 22 squared minus 4 times 1 times 121, which is 4ac. Here's 4ac, all over 2 times a, 2 times 1. Set up the following. Oh, I didn't circle my top answer. Let's just check the answer and make sure they got the right one here. We're circling this. It is a negative 22 plus or minus radical 22 squared minus 4 times 1 times 121 divided by 2 times 1. So I'm happy with that. I start to get impatient. And let's see here. This one says setup also. A equals 1. B equals negative 22. C equals 121. X equals negative b, which is a negative 22. Put them both in there first. And then we'll go back later and say, oh, that's going to be a positive 22. And I might just put it in my calculator exactly like that. B is negative 22, squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 121, all over 2 times 1, which is a. One more. So this is interesting. A equals 1, b equals 0, because there is no middle term. C equals negative 121. X equals negative b, which is 0. Plus minus radical b squared, which is 0 squared. And I'm just going to put it in there, because let's see how it comes out. Let's write it out first, then we'll worry about simplifying it. Minus 4 times a times c, negative 121, all over 2 times a, 2 times 1. All right, so it doesn't look like they're actually asking us to solve this, but we're going to. Let's go ahead and type a couple in. Let's at least type these 2 in to the calculator. So go to your calculator. Remember, you've got the standard calculator on your phone. Turn this thing sideways, and the calculator shifts to your advanced calculator, right? Or scientific calculator, or more. I'm not sure which it is. Let's see. So I'm going to start with this. Let's clear this out. Let's say negative 22. Let's try to do this the whole route. Let's see if I can make this work. Negative, parentheses, negative. Nope, it doesn't like that minus. It's got its own negative key. Negative 22, parentheses. So I got too many parentheses in there. I'm not sure happy about that. And I do want a whole parentheses because I want to divide the top first. Then I want to take care of the top first, then divide it by the denominator. The numerator first, then divide it by the... Okay. Let's leave this... You know what? This is going to be easier. Negative is positive, 22. Sorry about that, you guys. Let's just do the number under the radical, okay? I'm forgetting how to do this. Let's see. Parentheses, negative 22, parentheses squared. There we go. Minus, and I'd like to put a square root around this if I can do it. Square root. There we go. Square root, negative 22 squared, minus 4 times 1 is 4, times 1, 2, 1. All right, how many parentheses do I need? This parenthesis closes in with this one. Good, that's it. Interestingly enough, look what I got. 0. All right, so there's a 0 here. Divided by 2 times 1 is 2. So what I got was 22 divided by 2, and you can separate these, right? You could say 22 divided by 2 plus or minus 0 divided by 2. That might help your brain go. 22 divided by 2 is 11. So x equals 11 plus or minus 0, which is nothing. It's just x equals 11. So if you look at this problem, this is the actual root. So if you're going to plug this back in and factor this thing, you would have to reverse that out. So you would say x, because it's positive here, we would have to have x minus 11 in the actual binomial, x minus 11. All right? And I would have 2 of those, x minus 11 squared. I would have x minus 11 times x minus 11, which equals x minus 11 squared. And remember, this is all equal to y equal to 0. And so anytime we have the root repeat twice, what's really happening here is the root is at x equal to 11, which is here, 11, and this parabola is going up like that with one root right here. All right, so this is interesting because they gave us a number that didn't play out with 2 roots. It disappeared in this context, right? Let's see what happens on the next one. This is definitely interesting. My calculator is a little bit helpful, but it's pretty simple here to just do some things. Like 0 disappears. There's no plus minus. All I've got is this square root. So let's try square root of, and I've got so I'm going to have a negative 4 times 1, which disappears, times a negative 21. So times negative 121, sorry, 121. All right, this matches up with this. I'm not sure I need all these different parentheses in here. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. Okay, so the square root, what we have here is negative 4 times 121. That comes out 22 because it's the square root of it. So what we really have is 22 divided by 2, and this equals 11 also. So that's a single root. We have x equals 11 again. And looking back at this one, (22) divided by, so we've got this one plus minus, 0 plus minus, okay. So let me make a little correction here. We have equals 0 plus minus, which produces, okay, a x equal to 22 over 2 plus, and x equal to 22 over 2 minus, which equals a plus 11 and equals a minus 11. So in this case, we have 2 roots. One here at minus 11, and one here at positive 11. And here's your parabola cutting through. And so the actual factoring of this thing is 0 equals, we have x plus 11 and an x minus 11. This is the factoring that it looks like. These are the actual roots, x equal to 11 and minus 11. And because we have a 0 here, the plus minus remains in. I was trying to drop it, but I'm not allowed. I got to say 0 equals plus minus 22 over 2, which produces a plus 11 and a minus 11. Right? You don't have to do all this extra stuff, but I would definitely like you to put it in your comp book and solve at least these 2 and use your calculator to try and work through them like I did. All right? So make sure you're matching up the title. This one is Algebra 1, Semester 2. It's the 3rd unit called Quadratics, and it's the 18th lesson called Quadratic Formula Practice. Right? Hope this helps.